take us from this initial onset of African peoples, African slaves are not human. They are savages and they are dangerous, and connect us to that same perception that is held by police officers when they see a black person. Their gut, oftentimes, their instinct is fear, and their instinct is this person is dangerous. Connect those dots for us.
Okay, so when we talk about the founding of America, we have to understand that race was very key to the founding of America. Race, Americanness cannot be separated from its racial aspects. And I believe it was Frederick Douglass who once said, and there are actual parallels between what you said about the need for Bernie Sanders to coalesce the Reddit crowd and the black vote. During the primaries. Frederick Douglass once said that there was an inseparableness between. There was this divide between Americanness and blackness that was the result of sort of America being founded upon these white supremacist notions, and that divide had never been closed. That this colonial mindset that was the result of this need to justify economic system morally and philosophically became just never went away, because eventually it was ingrained into how we viewed science. I mean, ultimately, I think we can all agree that had the founding fathers and the people of the time had just said, well, we need slaves because it's more expedient, it's more efficient economically, we want them, it is what it is, we'd be better off today, because there wouldn't be that sort of baggage of racism and race attached to it. It would just be like, well, once it stopped being economically efficient, we stopped doing it, and then we had all these people. But that need arose, and it was simply never adequately tackled by any of our social systems. We just eventually, we eventually freed the slaves, but we didn't sort of get rid of the same mindset that had made them slaves in the first place. And that's how we get from slave era in America to Jim Crow era America, where we still have this perception of a problem that we have this group of African Americans, I guess, for lack of a better word at the time, freed slaves who are still just as savage, still just as needing of the yoke of the white man. At least that was the mentality in certain parts of the country, North and South. So we need these new set of laws. So they can't be slaves, but they certainly can't be totally free. They definitely can't be totally equal to the white man, because that is just not within, that's not what our society is founded upon.
So let's dig. Okay, all right. This is about to be a great conversation. First of all, everybody share and tweet the link. Can I jump in there real quick, Ben? Let's get a couple of people in here and get this conversation, because there's something I'm gonna let you ask that question real quick. But there's something that I want us to address, which is a clearer definition of white supremacy from the anthropological look. But go ahead with that question, whoever that was.
I'm sorry. When I have conversations like this, I like to kind of when we level set these discussions, I like folks to remember that prior to colonialism, Africa had thriving civilizations in place, whether it be Carthage, Ethiopia, Egypt, Zimbabwe, what became Ghana. I mean, you can go down a list of African civilizations well before colonization started. So they weren't really saving us from anything. They came to take resources, including human resources. Well, I'm gonna put that out there.
No, absolutely. I think it's a and that's part of the formula, right? That's part of the formula. Part of the justification was we're actually, not only are there savages, but now we enter in the white hero complex, where the white savior complex, where now we're saving them from their savagery, and we brought them we gave them Christianity, and we brought them to a better, more civilized, more sophisticated way of life. So not only are they not human, but we are making them human, and we're making them less savage. That was part of, and the only way they could justify that is to erase any sense of identity and credit for the achievements that were made throughout the continent for thousands of years. So let's go to Brandon. Would you define for me, based on everything that we've said so far? You don't have to give me like a textbook definition, but I want you to piece together the elements of what you've been saying so far. Give me your definition of white supremacy.
Okay, so again, I would just say that my definition is what I would call white supremacy. Well, we have a global world now, so this is what white supremacy is globally. The notion that whiteness is inherently better, or either the subconscious or the implicit or explicit notion that whiteness, the white race, is inherently more moral, more capable, better than other races by nature of their particular skin tone, for lack of a better word, the amount of melanin they have, the fact that they've evolved to be that particular color. So the fact that they're white makes them particularly better, and that we've built, and so a white supremacist culture is a culture that has built its systems and structures to reflect this notion, that has built its infrastructure to reflect the notion that white people are superior in these variety of categories by nature of birth and not anything they've actually achieved.
Mm-hmm. And we see this to me, this is the lingering vestiges of that justification that was required to explain why it's okay for us to be equal with the king, but it's also okay for us to keep slaves, because we're equal with the king, but these people are not human. And so from that point forward, everything that was done either implicitly or explicitly to define whiteness as superior to anything else. One, because they had to maintain the system and the justification around that system, but then two, because it became cyclical. It became an echo chamber, or feedback. The feedback effect became to set in over as the generations came and went, because after a few generations of intentionally practicing the subjugation of people, both physically and social politically, the next generation just automatically does it. And it compounds itself to the point where it no longer has to actively be done. There's no one who has to write anything about these things anymore. There's no one who has to even try to set that narrative in motion. It already has a weight of its own. It already has a momentum of its own. And what we're dealing with today is trying to not only, we're still trying to stop the momentum. We haven't even gotten to a position where we can reverse the momentum that white supremacy set in America from the outset.